We are taking a look at another hot Benjamin Moore color. This is one to look out for moving into 2024. It is none other than Topaz. And we're not talking about a yellow topaz. This is definitely more golden orange, kind of like the back of my iPad here, not sponsored. I'm James, the color guy. This, of course, is Color Quickie, where we take a paint color, talk about it, go into some details on it, but most importantly, I'm going to equip you with some trim colors and other paint colors that go really well with it, so you're gonna have an awesome color palette to use on your next paint project. If that sounds like something fun and awesome, which it obviously is, press that like button for me, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get into this video. So if you are familiar with paint trends and just design in general, you've been seeing a lot of these kinds of colors in the world. And this includes reds, oranges, terracottas, clay colors, earthy colors. A lot of these warmer undertone paint colors have become so popular, and I think it's because we're moving away and we're departing from the more monochromatic grayscale cooler colors that the minimalist aesthetic was sort of pushing. We're craving a little more color, and this one is a lot more color. Topaz by Benjamin Moore is a richly saturated, fiery orange that is softened slightly by a touch of brown and maybe a dash of red as well. Very passionate color. It also has a pretty low LRV, which is the light reflectance value. And this tells us how dark the color appears. And that's based on the percentage of light that it reflects, which in this case is around 22. So that is the bottom quarter of paint colors. That's a pretty dark color, but when you look at it, it's not overly bogged down and shaded. It has so much saturation to it that it feels maybe a bit lighter and more lively than it actually is. Colors this saturated, they do present some issues where they will dominate whatever space you use it in typically. And also from a practical standpoint, the amount of colorant that goes into something like Topaz means the coverage might be a bit tricky depending on the product you're using. So just be mindful of that, especially if you're doing the painting on your own. That being said, if you are someone that is craving some color, Topaz is an interesting choice because it does fit within a wonderful niche of being so vibrant and so punchy, but still sits nicely amongst other colors that are maybe less punchy, more neutral, more passive. And that's what I've decided to do for this color palette that I'm going to present to you today. I'm going to go with colors that are a little more muted, but still varied enough so you're not left with orange and only orange. I'm gonna give you some variety here because Topaz is definitely the accent color in today's video, and it's something that I would use maybe in something like a powder room or perhaps on furniture, accent pieces, maybe even off the walls in the form of the types of pillows you use and artwork and things like that. But if you did want to use it on your walls, what are some trim color options? Well, I got two for you. The first one is one of my favorite soft, slightly warm whites. It is called Steam, and it's from the Affinity color collection by Benjamin Moore, those AF colors. And what I like about it is it's a very contemporary take on warm white. It doesn't feel creamy, it definitely doesn't feel yellow leaning, but it also doesn't have that signature blue cast that some of those cooler whites can have. And I think that works perfectly in this case because Topaz, very, very warm color, but some of the other colors we're going to talk about later on can have a bit of a cool color cast. So I wanted to go with something that was kind of right down the middle, but just favored a soft warmth ever so slightly. And as a darker trim color alternative, I wanted to go with something called Rural Earth. I love the pairing of orange and black or brown because brown at the end of the day is just a very dark shaded version of orange. So the two go very hand in hand. And this is a brown that is quite deep, quite dark, much darker than even Topaz. And obviously there's going to be a lot more of that blackened effect being a brown. So the contrast will be quite nice, yet it's still neutral enough where it can coexist with other colors, not just orange. Other colors like our first color pairing, which is Sea Urchin. And this is a color that is described as being a shaded beige, which kind of equates to being a grayish. However, I do see it being much more warm and beige leaning and a bit creamier rather than the more gray dominant neutrals that maybe were popular 5 to 10 years ago. This is going to bring in a touch of that orange warmth found in Topaz, but to a much more muted degree. This is the color that is going to be your neutral. If you have a space that you want to feel a little more passive, especially on the walls, maybe your decor is going to be the accent. You want that to be a little more punchy, and you want your walls to sort of just become an empty canvas. That's where a color like Sea Urchin comes into play. It's going to be your go-to default, or Topaz can be the standout, while this one just sort of hangs out in the background a bit. Moving on to our second color pairing. This one is a little bit darker, not quite as dark as Topaz, but definitely a deeper mid-tone color and a little bit complementary compared to Topaz. It is Dry Sage. And like I mentioned at the top of the video, I'm going with a little bit more of a muted, desaturated set of color pairings because we already have enough saturation in that orange. So Dry Sage is a clear green. It's not beating around the bush there. But what it does give you is a color that you're not just saving for one part of your home. This is one that can go in a number of different places. Even on kitchen cabinets, I think Dry Sage would be really, really great. And then to finish things off, we have a cooler leaning color that is just in its own kind of world. It is Normandy. And this is a blue for sure, but Benjamin Moore describes it as a shaded gray with a blue undertone. I really do see the blue quite clearly in this one, and it has this sort of dark denim quality, maybe a touch purple leaning in certain situations depending on your lighting. But if you really want to know how this color will look like in your home, make sure to test it out, please. Test your colors out with a tester pot before you commit to painting with them. And that goes for the whole color palette, which is right over here. Please let me know what you think. And if you haven't already, check out our Patreon, where we have exclusive brand new content every single Sunday, a little more yapping from me over on the Patreon. And every 3 months, if you're a Prime member, you get your own personalized color quickie, which we're going to start releasing this month, our first little batch. So you don't want to miss that. Check us out in the description down below. And we got more content right over here if you want to keep watching.